How to rebuild yourself when you've lost everything. There is a moment, quiet, heavy, and almost unbearable, when you realize that the life you once knew is gone, not partially, not temporarily, but completely, and nothing you do can bring it back the way it was. If you are listening to this now, chances are you have reached that moment. The moment where the future feels blank, the past feels painful, and the present feels unreal. Where everything you used to rely on, people, identity, purpose, certainty, direction, has slipped through your hands, leaving behind a silence that feels louder than any noise. And if that is where you are, let me speak to you directly. You are not weak for feeling lost. You are not broken for feeling empty. You are standing at the exact point where rebuilding becomes possible. But here's what no one tells you. You cannot rebuild what you were. You can only rebuild who you are becoming. Think about this for a moment. Loss does not just take things from us. It takes the version of ourselves that depended on those things to exist. When the structure collapses, the identity collapses with it. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that when the ego's familiar world breaks down, the unconscious rises to the surface, not to punish us, but to force a reorientation towards something more authentic. This is why losing everything feels like losing yourself, because the self you knew was built around what is now gone. Viktor Frankl, who lost his family, his freedom, and his former life under the most extreme conditions imaginable, discovered something that most people never realize. When everything external is stripped away, the inner world becomes the final territory of freedom. Not comfort, not happiness. Freedom. Now ask yourself, if everything that defined you has been taken, what remains? At first, the answer feels terrifying. Nothing. And yet, that nothing is not emptiness. It is potential. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that one must still have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. And chaos is exactly what remains after total loss, raw, unstructured, painful, but alive. This is the beginning point. Not of recovery, but of reconstruction. Most people try to rebuild by desperately clinging to fragments of the old life, replaying memories, repeating patterns, seeking replacements that look familiar but feel hollow. But rebuilding is not restoration, it is creation. And creation requires letting the ruins be ruins. Alan Watts spoke often about how suffering increases when we resist change, because life moves through cycles of building and dissolving, and the ego's need for permanence turns natural endings into personal tragedies. But here's the quiet truth. Something ended because it could not continue. And what could not continue was not aligned with what you were meant to become next. Now ask yourself, who were you before you had to survive? Who are you beneath the roles, the expectations, the labels, the routines? Loss removes the mask, not gently, but completely. And while that exposure feels unbearable, it is also honest. Carl Jung called this confrontation with the shadow the moment when illusions dissolve, and the psyche demands truth instead of performance. Rebuilding begins here. Not with motivation, not with confidence, but with honesty. Honesty about what you can no longer pretend. Honesty about what you've tolerated. Honesty about what you ignored. Napoleon Hill spoke of definiteness of purpose, but purpose does not emerge from comfort. It emerges from crisis, when the mind is forced to choose direction instead of drifting. Loss disrupts unconscious momentum. It stops the automatic life. It demands conscious authorship. While Jung believed this moment came from the unconscious demanding integration, Napoleon Hill saw it as mental reprogramming. The moment when old belief systems collapse and new ones can be installed. Different language, same transformation. The question is not how quickly you rebuild. The question is how, truthfully, because rebuilding without reflection recreates the same life in a different shape. Think about this carefully. What did your old life ask you to suppress? What parts of yourself were neglected to keep everything running? What truths were postponed for the sake of stability? Loss answers these questions without asking permission, and this is where pain becomes instruction. Viktor Frankl emphasized that meaning is not something we invent arbitrarily. It is something we discover in response to life's demands. Loss is one of life's most demanding questions, and your response defines who you become next. Rebuilding yourself begins not by asking, "How do I get back to normal?" but by asking, "What kind of person can emerge from this?" Strength does not come first. Clarity does not come first. Meaning comes first. Meaning organizes chaos. Meaning gives direction to suffering. Meaning turns survival into purpose. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that those who avoid suffering never grow beyond comfort, while those who engage suffering consciously develop depth, resilience, and individuality. This is the difference between those who merely recover and those who transform. Now ask yourself, what values remain when everything else is gone? What principles still matter when there is nothing left to protect? What kind of character do you want to build from this ground zero? Because ground zero is not the end. It is the cleanest foundation you will ever have. Alan Watts reminded us that when we stop clinging, we begin to flow, and rebuilding requires learning to move with uncertainty instead of fighting it. You are not supposed to know everything now. You are not supposed to feel strong yet. You are supposed to be present, curious, open. Rebuilding happens quietly, in the way you speak to yourself when no one is watching, in the standards you set when you could easily give up, in the courage to sit with discomfort without numbing it away. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not perfection, but integration, allowing every part of your experience, even loss, to have a place in your identity. And this is where true rebuilding occurs. Not by erasing the past, but by absorbing it, letting it shape wisdom instead of bitterness, letting it carve depth instead of despair. Slowly, something shifts. You stop asking why this happened. You start asking how you will live in response. You stop defining yourself by what you lost. You begin defining yourself by what you choose next. This is not toxic optimism. This is grounded resilience, the kind that grows roots in darkness and still reaches for light. Because rebuilding yourself is not about becoming who you were. It is about becoming someone who can hold loss without being defined by it. Someone who can move forward without denying the past. Someone who can live deliberately, and one day, without realizing when it happened, you will notice that the emptiness has changed shape. It is no longer a wound. It is space. Space for new values, new boundaries, new meaning, and you will understand that losing everything did not destroy you. It cleared the way. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Becoming You and keep growing with us. And if you stayed until the end, comment the word rebuild below and share what this moment in your life is teaching you. Because sometimes losing everything is how you finally begin.